Hello, today we're going to be discussing application of security principles. To start, I'd like to begin by discussing what a security failure really means. A security failure is a failure or intrusion of the computer system, including, without limitation, that which results in or fails to mitigate any unauthorized access, unauthorized use, denial of service attack, or receipt of transmission of a malicious code. Security failures are extremely important to be cognizant of in cybersecurity. So let's look at a few that have occurred in the transition to working from home and remote telework. Some primary security failures are the readiness to transition to working from home, lack of security training, lack of readiness to respond to threats, access to network devices, change management processes, collaboration, security incidents management, and the employee climate. With minimal access to remote network access, computers and other devices led companies to allow cloud connections where possible or other easy access to the network so that they could do any amount of work. IT companies and employees generally had readily available computers, but other industries were not so fortunate. And it took months to obtain necessary equipment due to supply chain delays. This forced companies to adopt quick ways to authenticate or connect to resources without vetting the software or tools properly before implementation. Almost half of the employees of the banking and financial sector reported they had no telework possibility prior to the pandemic. The IT sector had greater odds with roughly 80%, but still, there was not a real readiness to transition to working from home, which led to insecure practices. There was also the lack of security advice and training. Employers often did not previously provide adequate security training, especially when it comes to working from home. Since telework was previously on an as-needed situation or predetermined arrangement, there is not a blanket statement often issued by organizations to ensure proper security hygiene at home. This could be carried out universally by incorporating reminders, or ways to improve this could be carried out universally by incorporating reminders into social media feeds to critically evaluate content and how to identify warning signs of illegitimate emails, products, and services themselves. Something that Facebook has initiated by allowing the WHO to advertise for free and by directing users to the WHO if coronavirus is searched. Of surveyed participants in a recent study, 53% reported not having security guidelines from their employers regarding working from home procedures. 44.44% of the employees had no remote working possibility and possibly experienced up until the crisis. So there's really no easy transition to working from home. There's also a lack of readiness to respond to threats. Many organizations underperformed in keeping everyone informed and supported. Prior to the pandemic, it was possible to tell whether organizations would be able to readily respond to threats and change and pace, such as working from home. This could be theorized through the readiness to advise, enforce, and train the workforce during stressful and demanding scenarios. This could be thought of as tabletop exercises and having the adequate policies in place to reinforce best practices and good security hygiene. Access to network devices was a pretty critical one. Prior to the pandemic, most companies and organizations were ill-equipped in administering corporate devices and enforcing appropriate security policies for such devices and personal mobile devices. Only 36% of employees were using 36% of employees were using personal devices while working from home, which is extremely insecure. And of the devices that were corporate owned, only 16% had a MDM, or mobile device management policy, in place. It really enforces security, and it's a centralized management hub. As you can see, mostly devices lacked appropriate screen locks, hard disk encryption, and anti-spam software. However, most users were using proper password policies and two-factor authentication. Still, this isn't enough to circumvent the cybersecurity threats faced in a telework environment. Another noticeable observation is that more advanced security techniques such as two-factor authentication and hard disk encryption are yet to be adopted by most corporations, whereas established software solutions such as antiviruses are more widespread. Change management processes was extremely prevalent in the transition to working from home. Familiarity with processes and applications is important when working on a corporate network. However, much is lost when changes are made and employees are not working in a centralized location, such as an office setting. Any shift to daily operations will require a change management process and extensive guidelines, especially when shifting to a working from home environment for the first time. At the beginning of the pandemic, about 1 in 6 employees were using applications or services they were unfamiliar with while working remotely. When guidance was provided, it was done so via email and not through formal training. In fact, only 34.78% of communication was issued through corporate portals or websites, and only 8.7% was issued through helpful and interactive training. Which brings us to our next point of collaboration. Virtual work means that collaboration has to happen over teleconferencing and chat. However, which tool is right for each specific organization and how it is implemented is going to be different. Many companies turn to Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, or Zoom. All tools must also be mindful of the difficulties created by the need to balance such sensitive information and privacy issues of people who may have been infected with them. However, the default settings, especially for Zoom, have been proven to be highly insecure. Zoom is now faced with a massive backlash as security professionals, privacy advocates, lawmakers, and even the FBI warn that Zoom's default settings are not safe. The collaboration tools are definitely growing in popularity. However, only 35 participants studied are using personal collaboration tools, and many are new to each user, which does not bode well for security. Security incident management is going to be a major shift as well. With a major shift in any environment, attacks can be expected. However, cyber attacks have greatly increased since the huge shift to telework during the pandemic. The electrical power and energy system has seen 6 times the increase of spyware and virus attacks since the increase to virtual work, and the IT industry has seen 3 times the increase of phishing attacks since the increase to virtual work. Even with these numbers, 45% of participants reported that no additional security checks or audits were performed to check the security posture of necessary changes to increase attacks. Those aren't good odds. Employee climate is our next important topic. There's not a clear difference between an employee's attitude toward the specific environment they work in when it comes to at the office or working from home. However, employees had more positive indications toward their employers when the employers were able to properly react and support the transition to working from home. When employees are not inclined to support their employers, 20% more security breaches have occurred. The CIA triad is the pinnacle of cybersecurity. CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality refers to an organization's efforts to keep their data private or secret. In practice, it's about controlling access to data to prevent unauthorized disclosure. Typically, this involves ensuring that only those who are authorized have access to specific assets, and that those who are unauthorized are actively prevented from obtaining access. In everyday usage, integrity refers to the quality of something being whole or complete. In InfoSec, integrity is about ensuring that data has not been tampered with and therefore can be trusted. It is correct, authentic, and reliable. Quite simply, availability means that networks, systems, and applications are up and running. It ensures that authorized users have timely, reliable access to resources when they are needed. CIA triad violations during telework have occurred for confidentiality when users are using personal devices to access corporate networks. They are allowing the possibility of an attacker to access proprietary information. For integrity, it has occurred when users are not using antivirus or corporate-issued devices. So the integrity is compromised because there's no assurance that attackers have not altered the data. Without any monitoring of devices, there is no guarantee that the data sent was exactly the data that is received. For availability, lack of corporate-issued devices or portals guarantee employees can access the corporate network. They are lacking, and guaranteeing that the employees can access the corporate network, they are lacking in the triad. Also, with the lack of integrity, attackers can disrupt network access for those who do have devices, but they're improperly managed without the appropriate mobile device management procedures and platforms. Cybersecurity principles can be seen through encapsulation, modularity, simplicity of design, minimization of implementation, open design, complete mediation, least privilege, fail-safe defaults or fail-secure, least astonishment, minimizing the trust surface, usability, and trust relationships. While I won't go through all of the definitions, I will go through the ones that are relevant to this scenario. The principal violations that have occurred are least privilege, least astonishment, minimizing the trust surface, usability, and trust relationships. Least privilege refers to reducing privileges to only those that are required to act on managed computer resources, limiting access to specific computer programs or software that are required for a user to complete their job. This was violated through the readiness to transition to working from home because there was a lack of availability and more than least privilege. Many workers did not have access to corporate devices or a way to access the corporate network because of their organization's inability to prepare for the transition to working from home. Least astonishment refers to the principle that systems and security measures should work exactly how users would expect them to work. Essentially, there should be no surprises in how security mechanisms work, as with user IDs and passwords, because those are expected when logging into a device. It was violated through the lack of security advice and training, because if any users are unaware of the necessary security policies and guidelines, then they presumably were using devices without proper training or guidance. Minimizing the trust surface, or reluctance to trust, refers to the principle that trust should be held closely and never loosely given, whether it be by code, systems, or people. When trust is minimized between systems, the security of an application or process is inherently more secure. It was violated through the lack of security advice and training as well, because without proper security training on corporate issued devices or new portals, there is inherent mistrust. Employees may trust the new devices or processes because they're being told to use them. However, the corporation should not inherently trust that the employees are using them properly. Usability refers to the idea that efficiency, effectiveness, and user satisfaction must be incorporated into the overall security posture, so it is easy for users to do the right thing and difficult to do the wrong thing. It was violated through collaboration and change management processes because new collaboration tools were swiftly forced upon employees, and their familiarity with the products while adapting to a new way of life led to using the collaboration tools' defaults and dangerous information sharing. Also, with the shift to using new collaboration tools, the change management processes were insecure, using the new processes with only 8.7% receiving useful or interactive training. Trust relationships are established when there is an agreed upon relationship that has determined secure interaction, behavior, and outcomes as it relates to the protection of assets. When two or more parties have agreed upon a set of standards, a trust relationship is formed. It was violated through security management incidents because, similar to minimizing the trust surface, there was not necessarily an agreed upon trust that was established prior to engaging in the sharing of information across new platforms and tools. New tools were forced upon employees, and corporations were having to provide guidance and training after the fact. This is definitely not good security hygiene. Some remote work principles that would be good to expand upon would include the following. Engaging in regular team meetings to provide updates and required training, enforce the use of VPNs and MDMs, boost corporate portals and remote learning and training, familiarize new collaboration tools and expand on them, and hold monthly organization all hands. Remote work can be difficult, but it can also be extremely productive and secure. To start, I would recommend engaging in at least 2 times or 3 times a week meetings with your specific team. This promotes constant dialogue and updates everyone on what's going on, so employees don't feel so isolated. This will enable them to reach out for help, stay engaged, and get used to using the proper tools and processes. While connecting to the corporate network, they should be enforced and required to use secure virtual private networks, VPNs, and mobile device management, MDM, platforms. This will ensure all communication is encrypted and monitored to help secure proprietary and sensitive information. These practices can be reinforced by boosting corporate portals and remote learning and training. A corporate portal should be a one-stop shop where employees can find all the information they need, from budgeting, timesheets, payroll, training, and much more. Also, while working from home, it's a great time to gain new skills and expand necessary training that can fill the gap of commute time. New tools and processes will require new training, but it can also be a fun way to branch out and grow employees' careers so they're more invested in the organization. As studies have shown, when an employee is more invested, they are more likely to follow security protocols and best practices. And finally, a monthly all-hands for the organization will be helpful to know how your team fits in with what the rest of the organization is doing. This provides a great opportunity for employees to stay engaged and still feel part of the larger picture outside of just their team. Thank you.